and welcome to the Actual Tech Media EcoCast. My name is Jess, and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information that I want to cover with you. All right, let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console. And we're going to start with the questions window. So if you haven't already said hi, there is a whole audience of cool humans out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Now, keep in mind that if you do have any technical issues today, a browser refresh is going to fix just about anything. But if those tech gremlins are clinging on today, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you, so throughout today's EcoCast, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over a live chat, we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentations. Now, if we don't get to your question during the live webinar today, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us will be following up after we wrap. All right, next up, there's going to be lots of cool aha moments on the EcoCast today. And if you want to share those with your community, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use the Twitter button right there on your audience console, and the hashtag for today's EcoCast will be automatically added to your post. All right, our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the handouts tab for some awesome resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection, solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go explore. Now, if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes that we'll be giving away throughout today's EcoCast. I'm going to tell you a bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. First, you do need to be here live in attendance at the EcoCast in order to qualify to win a prize, and we will follow up with all of you after we wrap. Now, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, if you don't know what those full T's and C's are, that's fine. We've got the full thing for you. Just head on over to that handouts tab, click in, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find them waiting for you there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember is that we love getting all your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much that we actually have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. So in today's EcoCast, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our live sessions. Now, the expert speakers and teams will review all questions asked after we wrap the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. If you are a lucky winner here today and you would like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about your big win, and we'll get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have you all here with us live at the EcoCast today, and we want to keep that good feeling going, so let's connect on social media. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter and on LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. Now, if you're looking for more awesome content and resources right after we wrap the EcoCast today, be sure to subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and, hey, grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or a coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you'll find a link to do that right in your handouts tab, and you will also be automatically redirected at the end of the webinar. And both you and your coworker or friend could win a prize, and we hold those drawings every month. So be sure to refer a friend because, hey, it could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for all the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link in your handouts tab, fill out a quick application, and the Actual Tech crew will then match you with some vendors that we think you should probably be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you get to choose to join in, like surveys, test runs, new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, you'll chat with great people, and you'll learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply, or hey, send that link to a decision maker on your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you all about one of my favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find out everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, prevent, and recover. This site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. Go check it out and start exploring. All right, I have one more exciting resource I have to tell you about today, and that is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. It's going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books will work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and as I said, they are completely free. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in that handouts tab as well. All right, well, we have covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited to dive in. So let's get going.
Thank you so much, Jess. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Actual Tech Media EcoCast. Today's topic, as you can see right there, is maximizing edge computing reliability and resiliency. I want to start by saying a big thank you for joining us today. Looks like you're coming in from all over. I see Randall from Atlanta. Hi, Randall. And Heather, good morning to you. Louis from El Paso. Hello, Johnny and Venkat Murray Mortiza, Kevin, Roger, Jim from Brandon, Missouri. I see you guys from all over the place. Andrew, Hendricks, Jorge, Martin from Mississippi or Missouri. I'm never sure what the MS means. Rakesh and Joshua, Daniel, Ed Fabian, Gilbert. We've got you folks coming from all over. We always appreciate having you here with us. Now, the EcoCast today features Scale Computing and Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, two leading companies in this space that are constantly innovating. I am Keith Ward with Actual Tech Media, and I am thrilled to be your moderator for today's EcoCast. Our other moderators, we call ourselves the Mod Squad, are Jess Steinbach, who you met, Scott Becker, and Mackenzie Pudici. And we are so thrilled to be here with you. Well, I am here with you. They are not here with you, but we are always excited for what we are doing here, and we love what we do. I hope it shows. All right, so next up, not only will you get some great information and education today, you could walk away $300 richer because we are giving away three $300 Amazon gift cards. As a reminder, as Jess mentioned, you do have to be in attendance during the live event, all of it, to qualify for the prizes. But hey, why would you be going anywhere else anyway, right? So with that, why don't we start our audience participation part of the webinar today? And what I mean by that was I am going to be doing the keynote here live, going through some great polls with you. The first poll is one that we normally do here, and this is not having to do with the event, but it is important. We want to know what your time frame is for adding new or updating existing IT solutions at your company. Please let us know. Vote on that, and we will keep tabs. This is something very important for our vendors and for us to know. We want to know, have you just started? Are you still in the planning stages? Is it going to happen within the next 6 months? So very soon? Is it going to be up to a couple of years away? Or do you just not know? That is fair also to say. So keep voting in that poll. Right now, the lion's share of you are saying you're not sure. So you're still kind of maybe on the fence or deciding where to go next. Next up, the next highest ranking here is 6 to 12 months. So a lot of you are right in the middle of this rollout right now in implementation, followed by a year or two. And then the smallest number are 0 to 6 months. So keep voting in that while we move on here for our next poll. Now, today's topic, as you have seen, is all about edge computing. So I got some questions for you to answer in regard to that. And we're going to go to that very first question now. So keep on voting here. So first question for the webinar topic. What is the primary benefit of redundancy in edge computing infrastructure? Take a look at those answers and start voting right now. So is it for reducing costs? Is it for minimizing downtime, maximizing network bandwidth, or enhancing data encryption? Notice what is the primary benefit. There are a lot of benefits to edge computing. We're talking about the main one here right now. So keep voting. Is it reducing costs, minimizing downtime, maximizing network bandwidth, or enhancing data encryption. Seeing a lot of answers coming in right now. And from what I can see, you folks are mostly getting it right. Doesn't mean there's only one, well, there is only one right answer, but all the answers might have some element of being right in it. So I'm going to move now to the answer here in just a second. A great deal of you are looking at, are choosing minimizing downtime. Some of you are doing reducing costs. Some of you are doing enhancing data encryption. There's a few of you looking at maximizing network bandwidth as the primary benefit of redundancy in edge computing infrastructure. The right answer, we're going to call it up here right now, is B. Minimizing downtime, and you guys have mostly got that right. So redundancy, of course, ensures that if one component fails, there are backups in place to maintain operations, thus minimizing downtime and enhancing reliability. So that is the first question. Next poll question up for you. So, how do autonomous healing mechanisms contribute to maximizing reliability in edge computing? A, by increasing latency. B, by automating corrective actions. C, by reducing redundancy. And last, by decreasing network bandwidth. Increasing latency, automating corrective actions, reducing redundancy, and decreasing network bandwidth. Keep voting in that. And it looks like we actually do have a right answer there. And we have all the right responses on the actual slide. So, hey, looks like I got this one right. So keep voting here. Take a look at it. Autonomous healing mechanisms and maximizing reliability in edge computing, increasing latency, automating corrective actions, reducing redundancy, decreasing network bandwidth. And the right answer for this particular one is by the second one, automating corrective actions. That is B, and the majority of you have that right. So autonomous healing mechanisms automatically detect failures or performance degradation. Then they take corrective actions without human intervention, thus maximizing reliability by minimizing downtime. This is so important because these environments are just too complex anymore for one person to handle it all. So got one question left. And how are you doing so far? Good, bad, ugly? I would say if I gave myself a rating, it would be ugly because I completely hosed up one of the questions. So why don't we move on now to the last question before we get to our main event here. And this last question is, which emerging trend holds promise for further improving reliability and resiliency in edge computing? Is it increasing reliance on legacy hardware, utilizing centralized architectures, decreasing redundancy in infrastructure, leveraging machine learning for predictive maintenance? So it seems like you guys are having a little bit of a discussion on this, or a little bit of some disagreement here, which is probably good because one of the things we're doing is we're going to be talking about these terms and we're going to be defining them today. So which emerging trend holds promise for further improving reliability and resiliency in edge computing, increasing reliance on legacy hardware, utilizing centralized architectures, decreasing redundancy in infrastructure, leveraging machine learning for predictive maintenance? And the answer, folks, to this one is the third, or C, leveraging machine learning for predictive maintenance. Leveraging machine learning algorithms for predictive maintenance can help anticipate and prevent failures before they occur, thereby improving reliability and resiliency in edge computing environments. The lion's share of you folks got that right. Now, this is, of course, all tied up in AI, which is now involved in every little bit of IT in terms of helping you folks do your jobs better. So great to see the responses to that. And with that, everyone, you guys are finished with your audience response time, at least for this segment of the event here today. So we are now going to move on to the first presentation of the day. I'm very excited here to have Scale Computing joining us, and we have now got Craig Theriak. I hope I said that right. Craig, I didn't actually ask you before this how to pronounce your last name. Vice President of Product Management is now in the house and going to be joining us live. Craig, it is great to have you here today. The floor is yours, sir. Take it away.
Cool. Thank you, Keith. And you had it close. It's Craig Tiriak, but to be honest, I've had several names in my life, and I'll respond to just about any of them. So thanks for having me on today. I've got a lot of slides to get through, but I'm going to try to actually spend the majority of the time on a demonstration of the products. I think you can really get into the meat of what it is that we do at Scale Computing, how we can provide the reliability and resiliency you need in your infrastructure if you're deploying at the edge. Before I actually get into that, though, it's real quick. Let me tell you who Scale Computing is. We were first founded in about 2007, 2008 timeframe. I've actually been with the company for a little over 13 years now, and we, in the 13 years I've been here, have reinvented ourselves a few different times. Sometimes it was very intentional. Other times, like in the case of creating a product that works really well for the edge computing space, it was a little serendipitous. If you've heard of Scale Computing before, you likely have heard of us in small and mid-sized organizations. We created a product that we call HyperCore that runs on premises, that allows a user to set up infrastructure, run legacy and even containerized and kind of cloud-based or cloud-native workloads on top of us, and provide infrastructure availability. It's a really easy to set up product, and we've amassed thousands of customers in that space, of really happy customers using the product. What we didn't realize was until around 5 years ago that the product we created that worked really, really well for small businesses where they need availability, scalability, and simplicity was that the core tenets of the design of what we created in that product worked really well in distributed enterprises. And so what's happened is over the last 5 years, we've had this pull into these types of environments, which we often now call edge. Edge, though, as a term is it's pretty loaded. It really is one of those terms that can mean just about anything. When we talk about edge computing at Scale Computing, we typically will refer to it as anything outside of the core data center or cloud. And there really is a spectrum. Everything from regional data centers where you might be running us in an infrastructure as a service type of offering. Local data centers, very common for small and mid-sized organizations to have that. And then the further out that you get into the far edge, that's more aligning with what most of you probably think of as edge computing now, which started its roots in more robo style of deployments, but it's distributed enterprise. It's distributed environments where you may have hundreds or thousands of sites with minimal compute needs, but still the same level of resiliency requirements and reliability requirements that you might have in your regional data center or local data center, or even your core data center. So with that as a backdrop, some of the challenges that we typically will see in these environments go beyond just the requirements around reliability and resiliency. And you'll kind of see some of these bleed together as we talk through them. But in these environments, you almost never have anyone that has IT staff, kind of the qualifications to either set up or manage the infrastructure that has to go on premises. Again, going back to our roots in small and mid-sized organizations, that was exactly who we designed the product for. And around 5 years ago, when we started to be brought into these distributed enterprise environments, it basically went from 1 to 5 IT administrators now to 0 IT administrators on premises that have the technical expertise to manage the infrastructure. Oftentimes in these environments, there are physical constraints, and that goes beyond just the needs to be a small form factor type of environment where it's sitting under a desk somewhere, or sitting in a telco rack in the back of the room. The physical constraints also extend to what you would expect from power, what you expect from cooling, even physical security in these types of environments. It's very different than what you might have in a tier 1 data center or even kind of a cloud environment. Connectivity and outages is another one that comes up really often in edge environments where you may not always have a connection you can rely on to the internet, and as a result, you need to operate in an autonomous fashion, and so you have to expect that there might be outages in that connectivity, and so you need to be able to run kind of offline from a connection into the internet. And then finally, unpredictable demands. Almost every customer that I talk to these days has some application that is either being driven by an internal line of business team, an application team, or sometimes even a third-party application team, where They're being asked for machine learning, AI types of workloads that are being brought into the environment to either increase top line revenue or decrease costs, or sometimes having to deal with even local security, that type of workload. They don't exactly know when it's going to come, what the requirement's going to be, but these unpredictable demands of I need to make an infrastructure decision of what I'm going to purchase in the next, say 6 months, 12 months, and that's supposed to last me for the next 3, 5+ years. If not exactly what I'm purchasing, something that can grow into what exactly I need, which falls in this unpredictable demands timeline. The infrastructure itself, like what we do at Scale Computing, is try to provide an answer to those issues. We provide a product that has high availability baked in. It's really easy to set up, really easy to manage. You don't have to have IT resources on-prem to deal with it. I won't spend a lot of time on the efficiency of the product today, given that the topic is more around reliability and resiliency, but we have a really interesting efficiency story that allows us to run on smaller form factors, both for the size of being able to, in these physical constrained environments, be able to put these hardware platforms in place, but also just the efficiency of the software stack to maximize the amount of I/O and other attributes of the workloads that are running there on premises. And then finally, the flexibility to be able to scale out the infrastructure to meet whatever the growing demands are on that infrastructure in the future. So with that, I'm going to transition into more of a demonstration of the product. And please do keep questions coming as they're coming in. I think the Actual Tech Media team is really good at sorting those and handing them over here so I can try to answer them in real time. And then Keith, I'll just ask you if there's something I don't see, definitely call it out verbally and feel free to interrupt to make sure that I'm answering all the questions that do come in. What you see on screen here is what we call SC Platform, Scale Computing Platform. The SC Platform is broken down into really two main components that you'll see me go into. One is HyperCore, which you see along the bottom there. That is the software that runs on premises on physical hardware that provides the high availability. It's basically pulling together storage, servers, hypervisor, a whole lot of advanced disaster recovery functionality that we'll try to cover here today into an appliance-like solution for running your legacy workloads as well as more modern applications like containers. We then have, see on the left-hand side, Fleet Manager. Fleet Manager you can think of as a management and orchestration tool that is cloud-based, that it allows you to provide visibility and orchestration across your fleet of HyperCore clusters. So I'm going to share my screen here, and you should see Fleet Manager. So here I'm pointing to fleet.scalecomputing.com. Again, this is the cloud-based tool that's going to allow me to manage my fleet of HyperCore clusters. I'm going to log in with Google, and you'll see in my fleet I have 40 some, maybe 50, 41 clusters in this fleet. And we've got customers that have thousands of clusters. But the idea is you've got a dashboard that just tells you at a glance, what is the health of my entire my entire fleet of HyperCore clusters. For today's demo though, I'm going to actually focus on just a single site here, what I call Store 301. So this is a 3-node system, as you see here. Each of these nodes has a single drive, single CPU, a handful of cores. Here's the utilization of that, a handful of running workloads on here. I'm going to use a feature that we call Secure Link to actually go into this cluster. So you'll notice what's happening here is there's an outbound connection made from the cluster to Fleet Manager to this proxy service that allows me to reach the user interface of HyperCore without actually having to have a VPN or having to have an SD-WAN into that site. So here there we go. Here's the HyperCore user interface. You can kind of see the difference here between HyperCore and Fleet Manager. Here I'm in HyperCore. So again, just to kind of throw back to that last slide where we talked about the overview, this is the section now where I'm on a 3-node cluster. You can see that represented by these nodes here at the top that is running on premises. This happens to be in my lab sitting right next to me, which is nice because I can do things like pull a node out, which I'll try to walk through as part of this. Usually when I'm demonstrating the product in a lot of detail, I'll go through the simplicity of being able to create the workloads. I'll talk through the scalability of being able to add additional nodes, as those change, those unpredictable demands hit, and you say, oh, I need to add another node that requires X resources. You just add that in, and it quickly aggregates everything. What I really want to focus on here today, excuse me, is more what I would call day 2 operations here. So you think through the life cycle of having infrastructure out at the edge of your environment. when you're really talking about maximizing reliability and resiliency, a lot of that focus comes down to day two. Yes, the product has to be easy to set up. We have zero touch provisioning that allows you to set these things up without having any IT resources on premises. Then you have to get your applications onto this. And usually in a longer demo, I'll walk through even using we've got a Red Hat Ansible certified collection that allows you to basically create workloads on the fly and interact with the infrastructure as code and define, this is what I want this site to look like, and pull in all the applications. The focus today, though, is going to be on day two and somewhat on day in with adding additional applications and new resources to expand the environment. So on day two, here I've got a day two system. This is stood up out at my site. Here on the top here, you'll see that I've got a handful of workloads that are running on the system. I could actually even still through secure link get to the user interface of the guest itself and log into Windows, do whatever administration I need to do from that. But I thought what might be interesting is actually to walk through a failure scenario. So we're talking about resiliency in the infrastructure. It's how do you tolerate things like node failures? And one of the things that I think sets scale computing apart from a lot of other products out there in the market is that we have built-in AI ops in a layer that we call AIM. So it's Autonomous Infrastructure Management Engine. And that infrastructure or that orchestration engine really is designed to monitor what's going on in the cluster and then make real-time decisions based on what needs to happen to get to a better desired state. So the way this works is at the lowest level, we have what we call collectors. And you think of these as really small collections of data, thousands of these across every node in the system. It's everything from temperature to just environmental things that are happening. The layer above that is kind of what we call checked values. So we're collecting data at the lowest level. At the next layer up, we're deciding, does that value that I'm receiving fall within a range that I can rely on it? In the event of, I mentioned temperature, right? So if the temperature falls in a range that is beyond obviously what is realistic, we're not going to rely on that data to make decisions based on the data. The next layer up then is actually where we start to set conditions, which is what you actually see in the user interface here. These are set in the UI here. They are sent out through syslog. They're sent out through email. They also will populate up through Fleet Manager for that kind of single pane across all of your hypercore clusters out there in the field. But what's actually happening under the hood here is that we're recognizing undesirable states. And so we're looking at, again, all these conditions in the cluster. And then based on that condition, we know what the desired state is of things going on in the cluster, such as, I've got a handful of workloads that are running on here. I want to keep those workloads up and running. The desired state is on, which means if this node fails, which it looks like it's recognized that there's data redundancy or degraded, there's a reason that, this node is unavailable. Any workloads that were running on this, in fact, if you were looking closely, you may have seen that pharmacy application that went offline. We know the desired state of that application is online, and we'll automatically restart it for you. And this is just an example of some of the power that's built into that orchestration layer. It's working in tandem with a storage layer underneath that we call Scribe that is actually placing blocks kind of across every node, every drive in the system in a way that we call wide striping. So we can make sure that, essentially any data that exists on this node 2 that's failed exists somewhere else in the cluster. That's what allows us to tolerate drive failures. That's what allows us to tolerate node failures like you see here. That's also actually what allows us to do things like live migration of workloads. So I'm going to plug that node back in. The AIM orchestration layer is pretty powerful. In addition to detecting things going down, it's also able to heal itself, right? So if this node gets plugged back in, which I've just plugged back in, you'll start to see it go through this exact opposite process of saying, okay, this node is online. I can communicate with it. The data is no longer degraded, and you'll start to see these conditions clear itself. And the system will even, if you have that workload that restarted another node in the system, if you've got affinity to a certain node, it will migrate automatically back to whichever node you have it placed on. Looks like I've got a question in here. Yeah, so one of the questions that I have in here, I'll try to answer these as we go. So no on-site IT resources required to maintain the system. What types of reporting and feedback can Scale provide for the customer? If customer identifies need to change that covered under regular maintenance. Yeah, so the requirement of needing no on-site IT personnel. So let's just walk through a handful of situations. One is this exact one, right? So node failure. So we're in day 2, something's failed. What do we do? So in this particular case, the workload has automatically restarted, which means the applications running within that particular VM are back up and operational. Then kind of out of the heat of this node being down, we can do a node replacement. And that node replacement simply is you add another node into the system and remove this node, which can all be done remotely. The physical seating of the node has to be done on premises, but that can often, in the case of my store 301, can be done by the store manager. It doesn't have to be a technical resource. It could be the most technical resource you have on premises, but maybe not necessarily rolling a truck with an expensive IT resource to deal with that failure. But you can really think through the need for IT resources through the entire life cycle. So on day zero, things like zero-touch provisioning. So we have within Fleet Manager the ability to go in and create a new cluster and define, which nodes are going to be part of this cluster. And based on those nodes, when they come online, I can assign it a profile and say, here are the configuration that you should have by the time you set yourself up. When somebody plugs in power and plugs in networking, there's a secure mechanism that reaches out to Fleet Manager, receives this configuration file, and then usually 10 to 15 minutes later, the cluster's up and operational, and you can start adding workloads on that remotely. So there's a lot of tooling around this. The assumption that we have is that most customers do not have ready IT resources on premises, and so any decision we can make to alleviate that need is what we're going to do within the product. Great question. Okay. So let's go back here. It looks like the cluster is healing itself. The next thing I really wanted to touch on was, I talked about the unpredictable nature of a node failing and dealing with application or high availability within the infrastructure. Obviously, there's a lot of customers that we have out there that are starting to bring in Kubernetes and just containerization in general, and actually building application level availability as well, which is great. I think it's a great solution to making sure that you're minimizing the downtime for the running workloads. And just want to make sure that I call out that while I'm demonstrating a lot of VMs in this case, application level availability works right alongside this, and you can run those workloads exactly as this would be run right next to those legacy VMs. The next thing I want to cover is more of the planned downtime. So part of day 2 is maintaining that you have the right level of BIOS and firmware and the latest update applied across your fleet. And within Fleet Manager, I don't know if you saw on that initial dashboard, you kind of had a visual of here are all the versions that are out there in my fleet. To update a version is actually pretty simple. So what we do at Scale Computing is we maintain the entire update for the entire system for our customers through a single click. So when an update's available, it's actually going to show up here in the user interface and basically provide a release notes and all the information you would need to be able to apply that. You'd click a single button, and we make use of live migration and just migrate the VMs around as we need to, updating everything in the stack. So we'll start on node 1, we'll migrate all the workloads off of node 1, then we'll update any critical BIOS firmware updates. We update the storage stack, the operating system in which we're running. We update the hypervisor that we include as part of this. That orchestration layer that I talked about, and all that, of course, is tested together in kind of an atomic unit, so we can assure that this update's going to work. And then once that node is up and nominal, and sometimes we'll have to do restarts to apply some of these things. Once that node's up and back and rejoin the cluster, AIM kind of handles that process of rejoining. Then we migrate workloads back to that node, and then we go to node 2 and we do the same thing, migrate all the VMs off, update everything we need to, and rinse and repeat all the way through the entire cluster. So in that mechanism for providing updates can also be done directly from Fleet Manager as well. So you can read the release notes, whatever you need to do, hit start update, and it will kick off that process so that you don't necessarily have to worry about downtime related to keeping things up and making sure that you're protected against the latest patches that are out there. The last thing that I wanted to talk about here as part of this is just the data protection suite. So some of the more advanced functionality that we have built into HyperCore are things around our snapshots and replication. This is I would say this is one of the unsung heroes of the Scale product line is the fact that all of this is just built into the product. So you can go through and very quickly take a manual snapshot as often as you want. Of course, you can schedule these snapshots and create whatever schedule you want that to be on and apply a policy to whichever workloads you want that to be driven on. We often will see people, if they're testing an update of an operating system, we'll take a snapshot before, test that. If it works, great. They'll actually promote that to be the primary. If not, they will revert back to whichever one they started with. And those snapshots are, I don't know if you saw how fast that was, but they're really easy to take. They're also really easy to clone from. And you also have the ability to do even drive level cloning. So you can take a specific drive from a snapshot and mount it to another running VM within the cluster. And when I say mount it, it's actually not taking the snapshot and mounting it, it's cloning the snapshot and presenting that clone as a mount point on whichever VM that you have that on. So it's really handy for file level restore and those types of things. So in addition to protecting against infrastructure issues, you're also protecting against things like ransomware or other issues that might exist in the environment where you actually have to go back and recover from using snapshots. Let's see. Looks like there's a few other questions here. So how do you ensure interoperability and compatibility between edge computing devices and platforms from different vendors? It's a good question. So, the platform itself, again, this happens to be running on a NUC-based cluster. So really small form factor, 4x4. We have 1U, 2U rack mount options as well. A whole lot of just a giant breadth of certified hardware out there that you can choose from. That infrastructure, this user interface that I'm presenting here is going to be ubiquitous, though. It's the exact same no matter which hardware platform you're running on. The way we interoperate with the other devices that are out there, right? So if you've got IoT device that's sitting out there somewhere on the network and connecting into an application that's running on here, all that's usually done on a local WAN, and that's typically how that communication happens. For communication from Fleet Manager, from HyperCore back to Fleet Manager, that's all on MQTTS and a couple other protocols that we have built in there as well for communication outbound. And then privacy and confidentiality. This comes up this is a great question. I appreciate it, Johnny. I appreciate you asking this. So there's a question around privacy and confidentiality. So one of the things that I think is really interesting about the way we've architected this product is, first of all, everything we do is, let's talk about it in two different ways. Number one is Fleet Manager is a cloud-based service, and a lot of people are saying, well, if it's cloud-based, what information lives in here versus what information lives in HyperCore? All of the information that you see here in the user interface within Fleet Manager is kind of high-level usability information, like how much usage for CPU, memory, disk. You can kind of see information about the individual VM names and descriptions, but there's no actual VM data or workload data that lives within Fleet Manager outside of the metadata about those workloads. Of course, we've taken drastic measures to make sure that everything within Fleet Manager itself is secure, and using the latest protocols to make sure that is. And we of course do continual pen testing to make sure that all of that is working as expected. On the HyperCore side, though, this Fleet Manager, while we present Fleet Manager alongside HyperCore, it's not required. HyperCore, prior to the launch of Fleet Manager 3 years ago, HyperCore was just deployed by itself, and so you could take a cluster, run it, even in a dark site, and never have any connection externally. And so all of this would be living on premises under your kind of behind your firewall in your environment to make sure that is as secure as you possibly would want that to be. We'll commonly be run in PCI compliant environments, HIPAA compliant environments, and while the infrastructure itself, there's no such thing as a PCI compliant HCI cluster, it can be operated in an environment that has those regulations and requirements. That's really common. So another great question. A few other slides that I could kind of talk through here. As I mentioned, what I'm demonstrating on here today is the HE100. Actually, let me go back to our actual slide deck here. Give me 1 second. Stop sharing my screen. Okay. So, yeah, as I mentioned, I just did the entire presentation based on the equivalent of HE100 series, but all of the hardware that we provide, all the options that we provide has a very similar experience. Um, I'll jump ahead to kind of the end result of all of this is that we have a lot of very happy customers out there that are running this on premises with a connection that it just basically is you set it up, you just don't have to worry about it anymore. And whether that's in a small business or whether that's in an MSP that's serving hundreds of clients or whether that's in a distributed enterprise out at the far edge, that resiliency and reliability that we built into the product is it's spoken about in just about every review that you can find out there. We also have a really strong partnership with our resellers and MSPs out there in the market and continue to win awards around that. And I know I'm coming up on time here. So Keith, let me just jump to my thank you slide. And I want to say thank you for having me on today. I've enjoyed the conversation and I appreciate all of the great questions out there. Keith, are there any other questions that have come in that I can answer that make sure we're covering everything?
Well, there are more questions, Craig, but we are out of time, unfortunately. Okay. You had so much great information, but I will add that that Scale Computing and you likely will follow up with any questions that were not answered during the event today. So have no fear. For those of you who asked questions that did not get answered, Craig, I want to thank you so much for being on. Scale Computing is always doing such innovative things, and thanks for educating us on what's happening with Scale and edge computing. It was a pleasure to have you today.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everyone. So while we get ready for our next presenter, I did want to throw up the poll question. Let us know what additional information you would like to get about Scale Computing. I think Craig generated a ton of interest with his presentation. I just love in-depth demos like that for the geeks. That's just something that we always look forward to. And while you're voting, I also wanted to remind you that we do have a handout from Scale Computing in the handout section, and it provides a great overview of the platform that Craig was referencing today. Make sure to download that handout before the event is over today. So head over there to the handout section and check that out, and keep voting for another few moments while we prep our next presentation and while we give away the very first gift card of the event. As I mentioned before, we are doing three $300 Amazon gift cards in this webinar, and we have our first winner today, and that winner is Randall Cowart from Georgia. Randall Cowart, congratulations to you. We will be in touch about claiming your $300 gift card. And with that, folks, we are set for our next presentation, and that one comes from Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. You might have heard of them. They've been around for a little while. And presenting for Hewlett-Packard today is Alan Whipple, who is with the Server Security and Management team. Alan is locked, loaded, and ready to go, so I am going to turn this show over to him right now. Alan, you have the mic.
I'm Alan Whipple with Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. Very excited to be here with you today to talk about the challenge of managing compute at the edge. In today's world, we're dealing with servers, with infrastructure at the edge, and we absolutely need the tools and the resources to effectively manage and monitor those tools. And that's what I'm exactly going to talk about. So let's jump in. First, foremost, you're probably wondering, why in the world am I showing an image of Blockbuster Video on the screen? Well, I want to share a story with you. And believe it or not, the second job I had at the ripe age of 17 was working at Blockbuster Video. And it was an excellent job. As we all know, and we're probably having a trip down memory lane in our minds right now, the way we consumed media back in the late 90s, early 2000s was through companies like Blockbuster Video or your local mom and pop video stores, right? You wanted to watch the latest movie, the latest show that came out. You couldn't stream it because that didn't exist yet. You would go down to Blockbuster Video and you would go up and down the aisles looking for that perfect show to watch. It was quite the experience, right? You would take your date, you would go with your group of friends, you'd go with your family, and you would go find either that new release and hope it was in stock, or you'd go up and down the aisles looking for that perfect comedy movie, that action packed movie. And then the exciting part, you would tip back that movie case and hope the actual movie was in stock. This was the life, right? And I actually enjoyed this job. And this was how we watched movies. We would go to Blockbuster Video. We would hopefully not rack up late fees, which we all have done, and hopefully you paid them. A lot of us did not. But it's safe to say that Blockbuster Video dominated the market when it came to consuming media. Well, along came a company that approached Blockbuster and they said, hey, we've got this great idea. We're starting to mail DVDs directly to consumers. They pay a flat monthly fee. We mail them DVDs. When they're done, they mail them back and they can rent or order new ones. It's going really well. We're growing rapidly, so much so that we think you, Blockbuster, should acquire us. Now, Blockbuster, in their infinite wisdom, if you call it that at the time, said, I think we're good. We dominate the US market. We know how this works, how our consumers get their media. We're good. Well, we know how the story unfolds. That company that approached Blockbuster Video was Netflix. And they had a great idea, an idea that definitely came to fruition. Now, if Blockbuster made the choice to merge with Netflix, we would wake up every morning and we would talk to our friends, our family, and say, hey, did you watch the latest show on Blockbuster Video? But we don't. We talk about, did you watch the latest show on Netflix? And Netflix absolutely dominates the market now, and we consume all of our media through cloud-based streaming. Pretty remarkable, right? And yes, if you're wondering, there is actually one Blockbuster location left in Bend, Oregon. It's actually more of an experience. Yes, you can still rent movies. I'm sure you can still get late fees. But the moral of the story is I'm about to talk about a brand new server management tool from Hewlett Packard Enterprise that changes the way you manage your servers that are at the edge, because it's all about the edge today, right? And so that tool is called Compute Ops Management. And you're really going to love what it's going to do for you in simplifying the way you manage your server infrastructure. So my ask is this. Let's not be the Blockbuster in this scenario. Yes, at HPE, we have traditional tools to manage your legacy-based servers. But let's be the Netflix where we transition to this brand new cloud-based offering from HPE. So that's quite the exciting lead-in, but let's get into the details. Before we talk about this new wonderful edge management platform of Compute Ops Management, I want to make sure you understand our other offerings. What you see here is what I like to refer to as the big three from Hewlett Packard Enterprise when it comes to server management: ILO, OneView, and our newest tool I just mentioned, HPE GreenLake for Compute Ops Management. Real quick, ILO is built into each and every one of our servers. So if you buy some of our edge-based servers, ILO is going to be the embedded server management tool there. Great for logging in and managing one server at a time. Then 10 years ago, we introduced OneView, a great management tool for your data centers. So if you're a customer on the call today that's saying, hey, I deal mostly with data centers, OneView is a great solution. But when you take OneView out to countless remote sites or at the edge, it was never designed to be that type of tool. So we quickly realized at HPE many years back, it's time to introduce a tool that can take care of your servers that are at the edge, which is growing in popularity, right? We love having our servers right where they're collecting data, right at the edge, and excited about this offering. So ILO, OneView, and Compute Ops Management are our three unique offerings. ILO and OneView are traditional legacy-based tools. Compute Ops Management, just like that Netflix story, is our first cloud-based server management tool, and it kind of changes how we deal with server management. And I truly believe as you adopt this tool, you'll look back and say, man, how did I ever manage my servers at the edge without compute ops management? That's how impactful it is. So pain points. We all deal with pain points. We're looking at our servers at the edge, and you might say to yourself, man, I'm tired of dealing with this dispersed infrastructure. Every time I have to do an update, what am I doing? I'm going out to the edge where that server lives. It's so time consuming just to update 1, 2, or 3 servers, and then I'm off to the next site. It takes a lot of time. Dealing with dispersed infrastructure is extremely difficult. Time and resources. We never hear that in the IT world, right? If only I had enough time or additional resources, I could stay on top of all these updates, stay on top of managing my devices at the edge. But believe it or not, the number one pain point when it comes to server management and infrastructure management is firmware updates. Why? Because firmware updates are not fun. When do we normally do those? In the middle of the night, usually on the weekends when no one's using your applications. And we hope and we pray that those firmware updates go through, because if they don't, those single nights turn into multiple nights or weeks of firmware updates. And so that's a very real pain point. But as we specifically focus on the edge today, that's why I highlighted, and you see that lovely soft glow around the dispersed infrastructure. This tool, Compute Ops Management, is a rock star in helping manage those devices that are at the edge. So if you feel any of these customer pain points, boy, do we have a solution for you at HPE. So I think I've set the stage well enough, right? I've talked about Compute Ops Management, but let me tell you exactly what it's going to do for you. It's built around 3 key areas. First, such a simple approach. This is our first cloud-based server management tool. And what I mean by this is you no longer have to spend time managing the tool itself. When we at HPE release new features, new capabilities, they're automatically there. So we're so excited to say, just start using the tool day one, and we take care of the maintenance of it. That's the beauty of a cloud-based SaaS application. Second, it's unified. And this is important for you wonderful Edge customers. I don't care where your devices live. I don't care if you have servers across the globe, across countless remote sites, at the edge all over the place, or in the data center. Compute Ops Management can manage all of those devices from a single pane of glass. So imagine sitting on the beach, pulling out your laptop, and being able to manage all those servers wherever they live. Now, realistically, you shouldn't be sitting at the beach with a laptop. You should be enjoying the beach. But you get what I'm saying, right? So the moral of the story is you do need an internet connection. So if you deal with true dark sites or you don't have an active internet connection, that's where we would look at some of our other solutions from HPE like ILO and OneView. But if you're at the edge, you usually have an internet connection into that device. But now you can log in from a single pane of glass on a laptop, not only see all those servers, but manage them and update them and get critical notifications, which we'll talk about in just a moment. So it's definitely unified. And third, most important to me, we want to automate. We want to look at those everyday pain-filled tasks and automate and simplify them. And that's exactly what we're doing with Compute Ops Management. I'll give you a little hint here. With this tool, you can see up to 4 to 5 times faster firmware updates. That is saving 4 to 5 times the amount of time working with these servers that are at remote sites or that are at the edge. That's impactful because what we want to do at HPE is give you time and resources back. Wouldn't it be great if you could be forward thinking, if you could go with your company and say, I know where we're going. I'm not wasting all my time putting out fires and maintaining the existing environment. I can be forward looking and look at the future of the company and prepare. That's what we want you to do, okay? So one other thing to be aware of, where does this tool live? Is it complex to set up? Not at all. Compute Ops Management lives in what we call our HPE GreenLake Cloud Platform. In very basic terms, that's our home page for all of our as-a-service offerings. Because yes, you have to have access to where the tool actually lives. But remember, You don't have to update the tool. We take care of that for you at HPE. You just need to access it. And for you to set up and access our GreenLake Cloud platform just requires a free account that you create. So very simple and to the point. So let's talk about some of those key features that are delivered across what we like to call 7 key categories. Because we want to give you a tool that helps you from the moment you get servers from HPE to the moment you end of life them. Okay, so if you're saying, hey, Alan, with this tool, can I get critical notifications? Absolutely. This tool ties into the health and wellness of the server. So let's say a memory DIMM starts to go bad, your hard drive starts to fail, a power supply is going out. This tool is going to alert you, and then you have some options. You can set up this tool to where it will automatically create support tickets. Remember that conversation I just talked about automating the process? This tool is intuitive enough that it will go out, it will automatically create support tickets, and even know where to ship parts for those servers that are at the edge. How nice is that, right? The key, once again, is freeing up time and resources for you. What about deploying operating systems? Absolutely. So for those of you who deal with Microsoft, VMware, Red Hat, SUSE Linux, you can deploy all those OS systems from this tool. What about detailed reporting? Wouldn't it be nice if you could know the carbon emissions impact your servers at the edge are having on the environment, or how much energy usage is happening at the edge? Yes, you can absolutely see that through this tool. And there's so much more. Firmware updates. I talked about 4 to 5 times faster firmware updates. Well, how do we do that? In a nutshell, this is how that works. One of the first things you're going to do when you utilize this tool is you're going to set firmware baselines for your servers. But here's benefit number 1. You no longer have to go out and find that firmware package and download it. It's automatically in our Compute Ops Management tool. So you just log in and you set the firmware baselines for your servers. But it gets better. This tool deploys what I like to call Delta-based firmware updates. So when you're ready to update the firmware of your servers, you go and you choose that firmware package, and Compute Ops Management will go out. It will look at every server and only give it what it needs. Well, let's break that down and make it very basic for you. Why does that matter for you, our awesome customers? Well, no longer do you have to go download an 8 gig, a 10 gig firmware package, stage it, and try to push it out across your network, because that crushes your network. Now COM is only giving every server what it needs, and you're off and running. And those are just a handful of customer favorite features that we have here. So please know this tool is designed to manage your devices, your servers at the edge from the moment you deploy them to when you end of life them. And to drive that home, one thing I absolutely love to talk about, there are so many wonderful tools out there that are built around monitoring, being able to see your infrastructure at the edge. But what we're specifically talking about here today is the ability to manage your devices at the edge, to be able to get those critical notifications, to be able to push updates, deploy operating systems, to send out parts to those servers that are hard to reach so they can be repaired in a timely manner. That's what a cloud-based server management tool is all about. So I want to make sure we understand the difference here of a traditional cloud-based monitoring tool versus Compute Ops Management, which is a cloud-based management tool. So in wrapping up, and to bring it all full circle, it's all about freeing up time, your IT team's spending less time in 3 key areas. If we can help you spend less time managing servers, you're going to spend more time being forward-looking, future-looking with the company, which is where we want you to be. And that's a win with Compute Ops Management, because remember, you can see your entire dispersed environment from a single pane of glass. So that's a win. Second, if we can eliminate downtime, that is an absolute win. But that task alone is very cumbersome. Well, with Compute Ops Management, those 4 to 5 times faster firmware updates, we can accomplish that. We can give you much less downtime. I talk to customers all the time who simply do not do firmware updates on their servers because of how much of a pain it is. They only do it when they have to. That's not a great way of dealing with your IT infrastructure, especially with those servers that are at the edge. Okay. So with Calm, we can address that. We can keep your servers up to date, and it's fantastic. And you'll notice I said Calm. Calm is my lovely acronym for Compute Ops Management. And then last, but my personal favorite, you can spend less time managing the servers themselves. With this tool, you don't have to worry about updating the tool itself. You simply just start using it day one. So you sign up for Compute Ops Management, start using it day one. There's not this massive deployment that you have to do because we at Hewlett Packard Enterprise own the maintenance of that tool. And in reality, we update the tool 5 times a week. But you as our awesome customers, you never see that because it's a SaaS-based cloud application. So bringing it full circle, like I said at the beginning, let's be the Netflix in this situation. Let's adopt this new cloud-based technology that's going to make you have a much better experience with those devices at the edge, because I get it. Getting to those devices at the edge can be extremely difficult. It's so wonderful that we have the ability to deploy servers at the edge, but sometimes getting to them is a true challenge. And with Hewlett Packard Enterprise and HPE GreenLake for Compute Ops Management, you can do that with so much more ease than you're used to. That being said, thank you so much for your time today. And it looks like we have some questions, so let's address those now.
That is a great idea, Alan. Let's address some of those questions, and I love that presentation. So first, though, we want to throw up the poll question for you. We appreciate your answers on what additional information you'd like to get from HPE. And while we go through some questions with Alan, I'd like to remind everyone about the handouts. We've got an infographic from HPE on how to simplify and secure server edge management from the edge to the cloud. So be sure to check that out for more detail. Okay, Alan is on with us, and it looks like he is ready to go. Alan, are you there?
Yes, sir. Ready to rock and roll.
Okay. Now, first thing I wanted to say before we dive into the questions is it totally retro of me to say that I miss the days of wandering up and down those blockbuster aisles looking for movies, and then I would find the perfect one, I'd check the box and it would be empty, right? And then I'd be totally
Yep. I miss those days too. Absolutely.
All right. So, but oh well, technology marches on, right? Isn't that what they say?
It does. It does.
Let's get to some of the questions then. And first up, Heather wants to know what kind of downtime are we looking at for the firmware updates, and are they on a set schedule?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the great parts of Compute Ops Management is we give you the ability to schedule when you want those firmware updates. And as I mentioned, we talk about 4 to 5 times faster firmware updates. So your downtime essentially is reduced by 4 to 5 times because remember, we're only giving every device what it needs from that big firmware package. We're no longer throwing a massive 8 gig, 10 gig firmware package at the server. We're giving it just the pieces that it needs. So once again, A, you can schedule it to the time of your liking, and B, you're going to see 4 to 5 times less downtime updating those servers. Great question.
It is. And as you know, I didn't spend a long time in IT, but I spent enough time. And anyone who spent any time in IT, gets a little PTSD, I think, with just the very word firmware, so you just don't want to mess with that. Okay, next up, Johnny wants to know, how can a financing company effectively measure and benchmark the reliability and resiliency of their edge computing infrastructure? So this is kind of a metrics question, and it's a really good one. So how do you define those things? Reliability, resiliency. What do you use at HPE to do that?
Yeah, another great question. And really, that's why the edge can be a challenge sometimes. We don't have the correct tools to get any insight. And insight is key at the edge. Being able to see those devices, being able to get those critical notifications, to know if they are operating at the correct, levels, or if there's failures, or if there's updates that are needed. Just getting that info from servers at the edge, devices at the edge, is a challenge. Compute ops management is going to help you address that, because remember, you can log in from your laptop. You can see all of those devices that are out at the edge, not just see them, but get critical information, even have parts sent to those devices and see if they are performing and they're up to date. My biggest fear in the IT world is sometimes we have that mentality of we set it and we forget it, right? Especially at the edge, because how often are we actually going back to those devices and checking on them? Now that we can give you a tool that you can see them from the comfort of your laptop, you're going to have more hands-on approach, and you'll be able to take care and keep those devices up to date and running properly.
That is so important, because you're exactly right. The set it and forget it is what happens. Those edge things, they kind of feel remote. They're out there. You want to worry about what's in the data center, right? And it's so easy to lose track, especially if you got a lot of devices out on the edge or wherever they are, whether they're IoT or whatever kind of things. Great. So we've got a timer, I think, for a couple of more here, Alan. So here's a really good one too. Does compute ops management, which you've been talking about today, does compute ops management support provide sustainability reporting?
Yeah, that's a great question. We are seeing such a push in the industry now for sustainability reporting, to see how our devices impact the environment. And that's such a big focus for us at HP, not just with compute ops management, but with all of our tools. But yes, you can go into this tool and it's capturing data and collecting information on sustainability, specifically the carbon emissions impact that your servers are having on the environment. You can see the power usage, which is great when you get to a point and say, hey, are there better options out there? Are there newer, more efficient platforms? We have a whole report section in this tool dedicated just to sustainability, and it's going to continue to grow.
It is great to be a good citizen, as well as making money with an organization. It is nice to see that you can do both. Okay, I think we got time for one more question here, Alan, and it's this: can the tool you've been describing automatically create support tickets for your devices?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one thing I touched on lightly, but just to go through that again, one of the biggest challenges we have, especially at the edge, is if a device fails. So first and foremost, as I mentioned, yeah, this tool can address that. It will alert you immediately when a component fails or even goes into warning status. But we take it a step further, and to answer that question, yes, we can assign those edge devices to locations, so we know exactly where we need to ship those parts. Totally up to you, the customer. As you use our servers, you decide where that location is, where those parts need to be shipped. But that's another value add, is you don't need to spend time creating a support case, trying to get parts ordered. This tool, Compute Ops Management, automates that entire process.
Again, this has got to be music to our listeners' ears. The support tickets are they're not quite as depressing as the firmware, but it's pretty close second place, I would say, in a lot of environments. So, Alan, this has been so much fun. Last thing I wanted to ask you before we let you go is, if someone wants to get started with HPE and take the next step, what is the very next thing they should do?
Yeah, wonderful question. Obviously, we are a great partner channel led type company. We have lots of great partners, but great place to get started. Just go to hpe.com, right? And depending on what you want to focus on, our compute portfolio, networking, or storage, we are a complete IT company. And as you mentioned at the beginning, we are the original IT company, right? We started in Silicon Valley, Palo Alto, California, a long, long time ago, with our very first customer actually being Disney, and we continue to lead the charge in IT. So yeah, just go to www.hpe.com and start your journey, and we will reach out and be so happy to help you. And thanks again so much for the time today. It's been a great call.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, and I appreciate the trivia question that you've now given me. Who was HPE's first customer, right? So I'm gonna have to stow that away and use it when I'm at a party or something. Thank you so much again, Alan, for being here and for sharing your knowledge and insights in the Q&A. It was really a delight.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to give away the last couple of Amazon gift cards here. In the meantime, I'm going to leave the poll question up for the HPE solution. Remember to keep filling, to fill that out, to vote in that poll if you have not yet. And remember the HPE and the Scale Computing handouts over in the handout section while I give away the last couple of gift cards and wrap this sucker up. So, we have got two $300 Amazon cards here, and the winners have been selected, and they are, do a little drum roll in your head, Brian Singh from Vermont and Bernard Wong from Virginia. Congratulations to both of you, Brian and Bernard, the killer bees, you might say. Sit tight, guys, and you will be hearing from us ASAP on how to claim your cards. Well, folks, this has been just an awful lot of fun for me, and I hope it has been for you. And if you were thinking that this has been fun, and maybe we could bring that kind of fun to your product, your solution, let us know. Send us an email at the address right up there, connect@actualtechmedia.com. We've got hundreds of events each year, including the ability to do completely custom events featuring you and only you if you would like. So reach out and let us know. Tell us that you'd like to be on with me or with Jess or Scott or Mackenzie, one of our moderators, and we will get back to you on that. You can be pretty darn sure. Okay, as we wrap up here, I want to remind everyone that we have another great EcoCast coming up tomorrow that has to do, again, with security. We touched on security a good bit today, and we're going to focus 100% on it tomorrow with this EcoCast, detecting, investigating, and responding to threats, best practices. This one starts at, noon Eastern, which is 9 a.m. Pacific, and you see some of the vendors that are going to be on right there. So this is sure to open your eyes and illuminate some issues you probably didn't know about. So consider signing up right after this event ends, which is right now. On behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank all of our presenters today for putting together these great presentations, the demos, the Q&A insights, and I want to especially thank Scale Computing and Hewlett-Packard Enterprise for making the event possible. Finally, last but never, ever, ever least, I want to thank all of you, the attendees, for being on with me and for all of your great questions, for your interest in this topic. It has been a pleasure, as it always is. And that's it, folks. We are out of here. Have a great rest of your day. I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.